Hello.
Hola.
Bonjour.
Привет, 你好. Hello and welcome to Language with Chu. Today I want to talk about a book, and it's about psychology really, but I'll turn it a little bit into psycholinguistics. Now, I've heard this before, so I'll tell you straight away. Psycholinguistics has nothing to do with psychopaths. It's not the language of psychos. It's language and psychology together, okay? Just saying, there's sociolinguistics, there's neurolinguistics, etc. You just combine linguistics with another discipline. So, this book is called What to Say When You Talk to Yourself. And I found it very interesting. Well, I'm interested in psychology in general, but I found it particularly interesting because it allows us to see how we talk to ourselves, how we use language when we talk to ourselves. Now, Noam Chomsky said that one of his main premises is that language is not made for communication, that its main reason for existence is for thought, because we spend most of our day, most of our lives talking to ourselves rather than talking to others or trying to communicate. Well, I think it's a bit of a non-issue, or semantics if you wish, because a lot of the times when we talk to ourselves, we're also, you could say that we're also communicating with ourselves. We kind of have one voice here and the other one here, and if you're not, if you don't have any mental issues, you probably still know that you talk to ourselves a lot. What should I do today? Or why did I do that? Or blah, blah, blah. Some people talk to themselves as if they were having a conversation. Others as if they were recounting something. We each have a different style. But anyway, I thought this book was interesting for different reasons, but mainly because most of the time we don't pay attention to the stuff that is in our heads that we talk to ourselves about. And I think it's interesting because, well, I've been applying some of the techniques myself, and I find it pretty helpful. It's not the only technique, but I think maybe you'll benefit from it if you want to give it a try. Okay, so let's see. This is the cover. If you're interested in getting it, the author is Shad Helmstetter. I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly. And one of the things that I found the most interesting is that this diagram, I've used it, but it's not on the book. You've probably seen it in other contexts, like, for example, for business training, they use it a lot, for business coaching, or for all kinds of different coaching activities. This is just an example. Sometimes they change what's under the water, but the idea is that only our behavior, and in the case of language, only what we actually say, is outside of the surface, is what people notice that we do or say, etc., what we notice. All the other stuff is the unconscious or subconscious dialogues that we have with ourselves. So this is the main premise of the book, if you wish. Your success or failure in anything, large or small, will depend on your programming, what you accept from others, and what you say when you talk to yourself. So his idea is that when we're little, most of us, growing up, we were told, about 70% of the time, we were told what not to do. And 30%, if that, we were told what we could do, right? So most of us have this little voice in our head saying, you can't do that, you're useless, blah, blah, blah. And he teaches people how to rewire that. He says that the brain is basically like a big computer, and that you can rewire things, because for the brain, truth is not the most important. What's important is what you tell it to do, and it will do it. So if you keep telling yourself, I'm useless, then you'll act useless. That's for sure, but it's a little more complicated than that. But anyway, these are his categories for this iceberg analogy, if you want to use it. And it's that for him, they go upward. So the programming is the very basic instructions that you've given your brain. First, it was others gave it to you in your environment, your peers, etc. And then after a while, you start doing it to yourself because it's what you believe. So you're programmed with a certain things that you identified with who you is. So that's at the core, your sense of identity. Then you move into beliefs, so what you believe about yourself, what you believe about the world. Then the attitude that you have towards life is a perspective from which you view life. Then the feeling, so how you feel about certain things that happen, certain actions that you're about to perform. All of those things under the surface, and in that order, influence ultimately your behavior. That's his idea. Well, I think it also goes the other way around, because sometimes you behave in a non-optimal way, for example, and that changes how you feel about yourself, the attitudes you have towards life, your beliefs about yourself. So it goes both ways, I think. And if we wanted to turn it a little bit more linguistic here, I would say that this is again Chomsky's terminology. He has E-language for everything that is externalized, E for external. So it's what we say to ourselves concretely, and it's what we do in life. And then you have I-language, so I for internal, which would be everything that is under the surface. Now, I'm butchering the idea a little bit, because for him, I-language is not even written in language code. It's all a bunch of algorithms, and I'll talk about that in the future. I broached the subject a little bit on one of my last videos that you can see here or here, I don't know. And but anyway, let's say it's internal language, because we don't always vocalize it. You may be telling yourself stuff, but you don't say it to others, right? Although it comes through. If you listen carefully to people, you know sometimes what their beliefs are based on what they say about themselves. Okay, so basically the idea is that your brain will accept anything you tell it. And just as you can talk yourself into, for example, being depressed, why not talk yourself into changing certain habits, being a better person, accomplishing the things that you want to accomplish, etc. But he explains, and I'll get to that in a minute, why sometimes we boycott that process, why it doesn't always work. We have, you know, the famous New Year's resolutions, or these are my new goals, and then everything falls apart, and you even forget that you had goals to begin with, or you lose the motivation, etc. Let's see why that happens based on these layers. Okay, the basic self-talk. Here are just some examples. You can pause the video and read them all if you want. But it's basically things that, you know, unless you're really like somebody who has no self-doubt, you probably use one or two of those in your life, and you may still be using them. I'm just not good at memorizing names. I don't know how it would, I just don't think it will work. I'm useless. I'm just not creative, etc., etc. All kinds of things that we tell ourselves. And he says that the brain works with repetition. So the more you say these things, the more you're going to believe them, and the more you're going to act on them. Now, just pay attention here. See how those sentences, if you look at them, are written in absolutes. It's not like I think, or I believe, or perhaps, or maybe. It's just like, it's no use. I can never remember names. I just hate myself, etc. So we talk to ourselves badly, negative self-talk, with absolutes. But there are different levels of self-talk. So he divides it into 5. The first 2 are the ones that we do the most often, and the least productive ones. So first there's negative acceptance, and that is when you say, I can't, I wish I could, if only I could, I just don't have the energy, I'm too old, I'm too busy, blah, blah, blah. Again, these are absolutes. You're like, I can't, end of story. Then there's the ones that we've all fallen prey to several times, I think, especially when we're trying to set new goals, and it's the recognition and the need to change. So it's things like, I need to start exercising every day. I should apply myself and get up early every morning. I will, whatever your goals are, right? The problem with those, if you notice, is that your brain is smarter than that. So you're not just saying, I need to lose weight, to whatever, study more. You're actually saying, I need to, I should, I will, I want to, but I don't, or but I can't. So that's what your brain picks up on. The I can't, I'm not doing it. So really bad wording, not language that will motivate you. Okay, and then there's the 3 more encouraging ones, if you want, or that will work to change habits that are ingrained in your brain. And the first one is the decision to change. So this is where you say, I never blame others, for example. I no longer need everybody's approval to decide what to do. I don't need to indulge in this and that habit anymore, etc. You're also talking in absolutes, notice. See, first you were saying I can't. And this one is like, I no longer need it. I don't need it. I never do it. Even if you do know that you do it. It's not like you're lying to yourself. You know what the problem is. For example, if you're, I don't know, anxious in front of people and you need to give a talk, obviously, if you say, I never get anxious before giving a talk, you know that you do get anxious, but it's a way to rewire your brain little by little through repetition, telling your brain basically, how do I want to be from now on? Then the second one is the better you, he calls it, and it's the I am phrases. So I am responsible, I am healthy, I am somebody who takes responsibility, I am a person who likes exercising, etc. And again, it's telling your brain, how do I want to be, right? So it's little tricks like that. And the last one is, in my sense, a little more vague, but it's things like more spiritual affirmations. So it is, I am one with the universe, say, and it is my mission in life to do blah, blah, blah. So you can read the book for more examples. I'm really summarizing it here. But I hope that you notice then that just as you talk negatively to yourself in absolutes or with vague phrases that will end up with the opposite message, you can talk to yourself in absolutes as well for something that you do wish to change. Okay, and then that's the core of it, and then he walks you through the process of how to formulate the phrases better and how to tackle each problem that you want to tackle. But there are a few little things that I particularly appreciated about the book. One is that he talks about positive thinking, but not in the way that is, more new agey, if you wish, where it's like, from now on, I'm going to think just positive thoughts and there's nothing negative, blah, blah. That never worked for me. And I don't think it works for many people because you can't, why would you want to shut down reality? You have to see things as they are. So the idea is to become positive, but at the same time, responsible and practical. So understanding things as they are, the situation as it is, and then working towards making a positive or having a productive behavior based on those circumstances. So I really like that he mentioned that, and he also mentions that activates your left prefrontal cortex, which is the best equipped to actually help you make good decisions and being realistic about the situation. You're fighting for your destiny, not against somebody else, and you're just rewiring your brain with what would be encouragement and motivation, but the true kind, which we come to next. He talks about motivation, and he talks about all those, personal coaches and etc., and how it often doesn't work because you're needing something external to keep you motivated, and the brain doesn't store motivation. It stores all these messages, but motivation is not something that you can store in your brain. So you actually end up with, I'm going to do this, from now on I'll do this and this and that, and then it kind of fades away. And he explains that he uses a nice analogy, I think, and it's a really messy apartment, right? That's your mind when you use all that negative thoughts, so all that negative self-talk. And he says, if you were to try to change that apartment, and it's all hand-me-down furniture, so hand-me-down programs from, your environment as you were growing up, etc. Imagine you were trying to get rid of it all at once, and you don't really know what to replace it with. So you decide, okay, I'm going to rent some garage space or whatever and put all the old furniture in there. By the time evening comes, your apartment is empty, and you're going to start missing some of those things. So you're like, oh, okay, I'll go back and retrieve a mug and my coffee maker, and maybe I'll retrieve a sofa because I want to, or a chair because I want to sit down, etc., etc. By the end of the week, you end up with all your old furniture again. So the idea is that to replace each little piece of furniture, you need new self-talk. You need to replace something that you do that is harmful to you with something that will benefit you and make you have the life you want to have. So you replace each item by reprogramming yourself with new phrases. And then ultimately, it's about having responsibility, he says, because responsibility is if you think about the word, if you think about motivation, is the capacity to put things into motion. And what better than to actually rewire your brain to say, okay, I can do this. I'm not this useless person or this whatever you're telling yourself that you are. Because that prevents you from acting differently. So motivation is actually setting yourself in motion. And responsibility is the ability to respond to life, to circumstances, etc. And remember the I should from before, the I will, I should, etc. That's turning into a burden or a duty. And the brain probably won't like that very much. What you need is determination to change. So something that you have to have a purpose to change. So an ability to respond to life. And the nice thing about these techniques is that it's not like subliminal messages or things like that are very true. They condition us in the media, etc. a lot. In this case, you're choosing what to put into your brain. You're choosing the sentences that you want to use. So you're basically asking, who's in control here? And I really like asking myself that once in a while, because if you let yourself be run by all these programs, then you're really not yourself. You're just obeying some dictates from society, from family, upbringing, etc. You're not really choosing yourself. So ask yourself, like, who's in charge? And if you want to be in charge, then you start using this or other techniques to actually get you there. Okay, and that's pretty much it. There's a quote that I really like from Viktor Frankl, one of my favorite authors, so I'll read it to you. Life is never made unbearable by circumstances, but only by lack of meaning and purpose. And I think that's very true, and that's what this book says in part, that you have to find a meaning in life, a purpose for why you want to change that. You can't expect a life coach or a whatever to change, because it's going to stay at the surface. It's just going to change. Remember the iceberg? It's just going to stay at the surface, and it's going to change your behavior for a while, but it's never going to stick unless you change those underlying beliefs, etc. Okay, and then if you read the book, you'll see that he gives several pieces of advice on how to do it. You can talk to yourself. Basically, the idea is that you pick one thing that you want to work on. Say you're anxious, for example, or you never get up early, or something you want to change. You can talk to yourself silently. You can refute every time you hear one of those thoughts saying you're useless, you can't, blah, blah, blah. You reword it. I never do this any longer. I am a person who, etc. You can also talk to yourself out loud when nobody's watching, unless you want to be called crazy. You can have a self-conversation. So you can actually, when that voice tells you you're useless, you ask for proof. And you're like, why do you think I'm useless? And back and forth until you actually get to the truth. Because the beliefs and all those things that under the surface, they don't really care much about truth. They just do it. They're just the beliefs that you have in your brain. But if you actually look for proof, you'll see that a bunch of this stuff you believe, you actually have no backing, no proof for. So that's the idea. And then you can also write it down. Writing helps with language because you're engaging other parts of your brain and you're engaging your motor center, so it helps you remember. Writing is always very good. So, and nowadays hardly anybody writes by hand anymore. I think that's a real pity. So you could try that, and you can also record yourself and then play it. And the idea is you will do it while you're doing something else. The more you do it throughout the day and the more you don't pay attention to it, the more you're just going to be absorbing it and actually immersing yourself in a set of, say, 12 sentences that actually work for you instead of against you. And then he just says, make it simple, make it easy to use, like I said, while you're doing something else. Repeat it over and over and over and over for at least 3 weeks and see what happens. Make the sentences in the present tense and in absolute terms, like we discussed before. In the present tense, because for the brain, it's not so important whether it was or it will be. It reads everything as the present. So you have to say, I am a person who wakes up early every morning, not I will be. Okay? And then he says, for every problem that you want to tackle, think about more or less 12 phrases that work around that issue. So you're analyzing the problem from different angles, and that way your brain can't trick you into saying, well, yeah, I don't get anxious in front of people, but I do get anxious when I get out of my house or something. So you actually say, I am a person who remains calm regardless of the circumstances. I am a person who lives life in a relaxed manner, etc. Whatever you want to say to yourself that works towards that goal. About 12 phrases. And then you're like a good parent, basically. The phrases have to be loving, caring, and kind, so you don't say I'm stupid, but you also have to add some strength and determination and demands on yourself. So if you're going to wake up early every day, then you say, I wake up every day at this or that time. You know, you don't make it too vague that the brain can be like, oh, whatever, yeah, I'm a responsible person because I woke up early one time this week or something. Okay, and then just to finish, this is a nice quote from him. How we react to those things in life which we can do nothing about will always be the truest test of our own self-control. our own individual sense of self, and our ability to manage our minds and ourselves in a way that keeps us coming out on top and at peace with where we are. This is a part of maturity. And I think it's very true, because there's tons of things in life that we don't control, but there's many that we do control, including our beliefs, our emotions, etc. So in the end, I think it's about knowing ourselves and taking responsibility for our life, and having sort of a curiosity, a thirst for knowledge about the world and about us, and engaging in the world in a better way, connecting with people better, etc. So yeah, I thought it was a nifty little book. There's others like that. He's got many examples on the book if you want to read it, on how to create your own sentences. But that's it in a nutshell. And I thought you might like it, and maybe you can share in the comments what your self-talk is, or if you've used any of these techniques. I find it useful for certain things, not for everything, but for certain things, because it reminds me every day of what I want to do, and how I want to be, etc. So yeah, enjoy having fun with it if you want, and pay attention to the language you use. Sometimes you don't say words to yourself, and I do believe that there's something about thought without words, and those are the most ingrained ones, because it's just a belief and it's just almost in your cells. But if you make it conscious, then you will use language to your advantage. And that's one of the reasons why I like language so much. I mean, it's so rich that you can use it. It can be used as a weapon against you, but it can also be a great tool to fulfill your destiny, to be a better person, happier when you can be happy, and most of all, in control. I hope you enjoyed this video, and see you next time for more tips, tricks, or curious things about language.